And we are live. Welcome back, everybody, to the Revo Report. Today, we have a treat for you. We're joined by Kyla Gillespie, who has a remarkable journey of transformation that speaks to both personal faith and identity. Born in British Columbia, Canada, she comes to faith in Jesus at a young age, but began experiencing gender dysphoria as early as age 5. After years of internal struggle, she transitioned to male in 2011, changing her name to Bryson and living as a man for 6 years. Following what she describes as a profound spiritual encounter, she made the decision to detransition back to her natal sex. Today, Kyla leads Renewed and Transformed, a ministry focused on sharing Christian teachings on faith, sexuality, and gender, while contributing to the Center for Faith, Sexuality, and Gender. Her story offers unique insights into the complex intersection of faith, identity, and personal transformation. So without further ado, let's welcome in our friend and sister in Christ, Kyla. This episode is brought to you by our Revo Report Patreon. Join our community to get first access to interviews, Bible study guides, devotionals, and prayer books for adults, youth, families, and marriages. Plus, resources on Christian living, leadership, sermon prep, exclusive Q&As, online Bible studies, and even one-on-one coaching or counseling. Visit patreon.com/Vince Revo and grow in faith and truth with us.
Hi, Vince.
Hey,
so good
Kyla.
to be here with you.
Yeah, it's so good to have you here. We were talking backstage, and I just feel like we could go on and on and on. My first question to you is: you've shared that you began experiencing gender dysphoria as early as age 5. Could you walk us through what that experience was like for a child raised in a Christian home?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you can imagine a 5-year-old, no concept really of gender or sexuality at the time. I knew that, my family was pretty athletic and loved sports, and I wanted to be more like my dad and my brother and my younger cousin than I did want to, be like the girls around me at church. And so there was 2 specific moments, and I share this. I was born in 1980, just to give you a background of what time it was. And there was little conversations anyway happening, especially in the church. And so one figure skating event, see, my parents put me in figure skating and my brother was in hockey. And I so badly wanted to play hockey like my older brother. And so anyway, I think my parents said to, at least Kyla will be skating. Hopefully that will be enough for her. However, one figure skating event on St. Patrick's Day, my parents pulled out this green, itchy, puffy tutu. And, like I said, no concept of gender or sexuality at that time. I just knew, like, looking around and seeing the boys in this sleek, green suits with a bow tie. And I probably said to my 5-year-old self, why? And so that would be like an imprinted moment where I realized in some little capacity that I wasn't a boy and I was confused. And then it was just a little bit later, after begging, crying, my parents finally allowed me to play hockey like my brother and my cousin. And it was just into the season on the island, Vancouver Island, which is about a 2-hour ferry ride from Vancouver, BC. There was no gender-specific hockey teams back in the 80s and 90s, so we just all played together, boys and girls. However, I was the only girl on the team, and my parents came to me maybe halfway through the season and sat me down, I remember it, on a cold bench and said these words like, Kyla, you have to start changing in a different dressing room. Parents and coaches have come to them, and so that's what they relayed to me. And in my little 5-year-old brain, I couldn't compute really like what they were saying. I just knew that I wanted to be like my brother and my dad and my cousin. And so that was another impactful moment where, in some little capacity, I remember even thinking at that age, like, why can't I just be normal like the other boys? And so those would be like early childhood memories where I realized that I wasn't a boy.
That reminds me of something that Sean McDowell will say. I don't know if it came from him specifically. I think it was Sean McDowell and either Greg Kokel or J. Warner Wallace, where they talk about how important it is to give kids, if you're going to give them a what, give them 2 whys. so they know
Hmm.
why you're doing that what. And I wonder if that could help us now, in speaking with our children now. I have a 3-year old. I wonder, I'm trying to catch myself as well, reflecting on that experience to go, wow, a 5-year old is processing these things this way, right?
Yeah.
What do you see the parents can do, or that maybe Sunday school teachers, churches can do to be sensitive to that, or at least to be aware that, hey, these little things that you're saying can have an impact, or even confuse versus give clarity to kids growing up, and that could get them questioning, am I a boy, am I a girl?
Hmm. Yeah, I think in this time of culture where we're inundated with the trans conversation and gender and sex and all these kind of things, I think that we can hopefully do a better job in affirming their gender, their sex, ultimately, and then explaining things a little bit differently. Back then we didn't talk about it, and nor did my parents even probably know that I was struggling. I was a tomboy and liked, micro machines and this kind of stuff, but that doesn't mean I'm a boy or a girl in particular. They're gender neutral things that kids can play with. And I think sometimes we put such rigid stereotypes onto our children, where I believe that the Bible has a wide range for how we live out our manhood and womanhood, even as children. And so just affirming that, going back and explaining how their sex at birth is good, even sometimes when we don't feel like it is good. And so just
Mm-hmm.
engaging in that conversation, like I know that probably I wouldn't be able to understand everything at 5, 6 years old. However, to start that conversation could have maybe opened up more as I got older.
Right. So just to be open to having that conversation, you're saying,
Yeah, I
just to,
think we start right away with
mm,
Genesis 1, 2, and then when you feel as a parent appropriate to engage on Genesis 3, the fall of creation, and how we're all bent and broken, and we have distorted desires and feelings. I mean, we will explain it in more of a kid's terms and stuff, but yeah, just opening up that conversation very young, because kids, if they don't go to a Christian school, they're being inundated by ideologies of this culture and world. And so it's best to start the conversation at home or at Sunday school, and include at Sunday school the parents also.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be a good start, right? How did, because you grew up in the church, right? You grew up with your father serving at the church, your mother serving at the church. How did your early Christian upbringing influence how you understood and processed this gender dysphoria and same sex attraction that you were going through?
Yeah, my family was highly involved in the church, and I remember my dad was an usher, and my mom was on the worship team. My brother also joined the worship team as he started to get older, and we had Bible study at our house. Even the people in the church, took on names of aunt and uncle. That's how close we were in church family, and it was an amazing upbringing. But we were raised in a very strict Christian home with good boundaries. But I don't think that we had a lot of conversations around sex and gender or sexuality or anything like that. And it was probably into my teens where I started to really wrestle with my sexuality and my birth sex. And that would probably be because I started to go to youth group. But what ended up happening, just growing up in a Christian home, I had heard about homosexuality,
Mm,
from the Bible or people talking. And I always concluded that it was really, really bad. And so what
mm,
I ended up doing, not knowing how to express myself or talk, I just really embraced labels like a tomboy. And it allowed me, I thought, the freedom to be more, if you want to say, masculine than feminine, and ride in that. But there was also a lot of suppression back in the
mm,
mid 90s. I thought to myself at like 13, 14, if I ever tell anyone, especially a Christian, that I am experiencing gender dysphoria and same-sex attraction, that I would be kindly asked to leave the church. And so I had a lot of guilt and shame for the feelings that I had in my early teens.